What's up, guys? It's Josh from Cardfight Empire here today, bringing you guys another video. This video is going to be a little bit different than usual, if you guys are used to me recording face-to-face videos, but it's actually going to be a video of me sitting down and talking about my experience at this weekend's event that just passed. It was PPG Atlanta, the new PPG Pro Tour that Pro Play Games has been doing. So I'm just kind of going to go over a little bit what I thought of the event, my experience at the event, how I did in the event, and also somewhere towards the end give my deck profile and talk about that stuff as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, leave a like on the video, comment down below letting me know what you think as well, so that I know how to think about this in the future. And I'm just going to give you guys my personal thoughts and opinions on it as well. So let's get right into it. So my event, or I guess I should explain what happened from start to finish. So let's see, it was in a really good venue. I really liked the venue. For those of you who are familiar with Atlanta, it was in the Omni Hotel. So that is usually where they hold like events like MomoCon, Bushy Road Regionals. When Bushy Road Regionals is there, it's held in the same exact-ish area, except for PPG had theirs in the hotel versus where Bushy Road usually has theirs in the convention center. But I can understand, because getting a convention center room would probably be way too expensive for their purposes as well. And since they're just starting this up, it's kind of like small. I would believe, or something like that. So they probably wanted to go for something less expensive, which no hate to them at all. It was plenty big for what we were doing in there. And yeah, I mean, I think the venue was good, so that's check plus. I got there timing wise, I got there about, let's say, 9 or 8:30. Kind of took a little bit of time to actually find the room where it was at, because the Omni is just a kind of like bigger, kind of confusing hotel. But fortunately, whenever you play card games, if you're in the nearby area, if you're like even near the building of where the card game tournament is, usually you'll see some kind of card game players with book bags or some kind of nerd bags or something like that that you can just kind of follow. So that's what I did. I followed someone that I saw had a PPG hoodie on, and another person with like a nerd bag, like a Pokemon bag or something. And I basically just followed them up to where the room was. So I got pretty lucky there. So I didn't really have to find it, but it was in a place where I know if I had to find it on my own, I might not have found it so easily. But that's not a big deal at all. Like, kind of finding the venue is always a thing when you go to events, unless it's just plastered really easy and that's just the building where the event is at, like a card shop or something like that. Moving on, so I walk in the door, I see some people that I know. I go up to the front desk to register. The girl that was handling the registration, she was really, really kind, really nice. They had Dabbers, my sponsor, vendoring as one of the vendors, so I went and said hey to them really quickly, and then I sat down and filled out my deck list. Going into this event, let's talk about my deck choices. So I was actually planning to, since this is standard, I have like one of 3 decks that I was gonna run. The first one being OTT, a kind of Imperial Daughter beat version with the new stuff updated, with the trial deck as well. And then I had Great Nature, which you guys, if you follow my channel, know that I've been playing for many consecutive weeks, trying to like play test a build that is perfection, or at least as close to perfection as I can get it. And that was one of my key choices. And then we also had the shop challenge the day before this event happened, where we got the Neo Nectar promo. So I actually was able to, through my friends, obtain 4 copies of that Neo Nectar promo. So I had the choice to play Neo Nectar as well, with that being one of my favorite clans. Originally, I was going to go with either Great Nature or Neo Nectar for sure, because I find OTT standard very, very boring, but I kind of just like was really indecisive about it, as I usually am before events. Like, I usually decide what I'm gonna play for an event like literally the day of the event or something like that, which is really bad. Like, I should stop doing that, but it's just kind of something that ends up happening with me because I plan and I plan and I plan and I plan for an event, and then it just never goes out that way because I wake up and I say, you know what, I should just play this completely different clan. So I ended up going with OTT off of the pure basis that I thought a lot of people would be playing Force and Protect clans like Royal Paladin, OTT, Angel Feather, blah, blah. I didn't think that I was going to see a lot of Excel matchups, so I thought that it was a clean choice to go with OTT. But also in Standard, like, I just want to dictate like checking my triggers or not. So OTT is really good for that, and triggers are really, really hard hitting in Standard, like really game changing. So I wanted to play something that would kind of dictate my triggers. If I could go back and change my choice for the event, I probably would have changed it to Great Nature, because there was a bunch of people playing Protect, and I was scared of Force, but honestly, the way that I play my Excel clans, I shouldn't have been as scared of Force, just because front triggers are a thing, and front triggers do a lot of work against Force decks. So I really shouldn't have been scared to play my Excel deck into the tournament, but especially since it was 2 out of 3 too, so it kind of knocks out some of the inconsistency issues of Standard, where if you get like grade locks for one game and then you just lose, like if it was a Bushiroad event, you just lose that one game. But PPG actually like really had really good rules and stuff like that, and they had 2 out of 3 timed rounds. The rounds went super fast, they were super efficient. The judges were really nice. The only thing that I disagreed with the judges was one judge call that was made in the entire event, which a lot of people asked me about, so I'll kind of go into that now. So we had a ruling where we had the new card Bedivere from Royal Paladin, the grade 2, and K, the grade 1 that goes with it. So basically, there was a player who played Bedivere, used Bedivere's skill to call K, which allows you to draw a card, so he then drew a card, and then he used Counterblast 1. The player used Counterblast 1 for K to search a Bedivere, and then the player was saying that he's allowed to use Bedivere because when you search for a card, it goes to hand, then to the field, which allows you to activate its when placed from hand ability, which is completely incorrect. I have no idea what was going on or what the people were thinking, but the head judge actually gave the ruling that was correct. Every time you search a card, it goes to your hand, then to the field if it's being called, but that's completely incorrect because that's the point of placed from hand abilities and stuff like that, so that you cannot just search it out from your deck or something like that. If that were true, Gold Paladin would be absolutely busted, have all these chain combos from calling and all that good stuff. But yeah, like I said, that was the only ruling that I heard about, at least, that was really detrimental, that you just could not do, that I completely disagree with. And I'm also certified now, Bushiroad certified official judge, so I definitely know what I'm talking about, and I've been playing this game since the very beginning of the game. So that was the one judge call that I disagree with, but other than that, the event was run perfectly, so please don't hold that against them. I'm sure that they have newer judges or newer people that are new to judging that were at the event, because like I said, the PPG Pro Tour is a new thing, and I'm sure that many people didn't just volunteer for judging just because it's a new thing as well. So yeah, so I was talking about my decks. So my deck choices, I decided to go with OTT. Should have went with Great Nature or Neo Nectar, to be fair, but I ended up going with OTT. And I'm going to talk about my rounds a little bit. So we started the tournament in like pretty much a timely manner, kind of later than I expected, but all the less not a problem, because it was fine. It was Sunday, had nothing to do, and it didn't start that late after they said it was going to start. I think they said it was going to start, or registration was going to end like 10 or something like that, and I thought the event was going to start at 10 because registration ended at 10, but it ended up starting at like, I think 10:45 or 11, which, like I said, wasn't a big problem. Just happens at card game events sometimes. But we go into the rounds, and my matchups are as follows. So for round 1, I actually got paired against Anthony Julian, who was another top 8 contestant, another top 8 participant that was also playing OTT. So we played the OTT mirror right off the bat, which was something that I was not wanting to play going into the tournament anyway. So I don't know why I played OTT if I didn't want to play the OTT mirror match, because I did expect the OTT to be there and have a presence at that tournament. So we played the mirror match. I think like game 1, I just got kind of unlucky. Game 2, I got pretty lucky because I was able to, since I lost game 1, I was able to game 2 choose whether I wanted to go first or second, and me choosing to go first in game 2 proved to be such a detriment to my opponent, just because I was setting up triggers and everything was going right for me, and I went first, so he has to feel like the pressure of things like Imperial Daughter, Deer, and stuff before he gets to do it to me. So that was very, very helpful. And then I just ended up, like, the second game was a blowout. The third game, I actually got grade locked, and then I drew into the grade that I needed, but my hand was still all grade 3. So I had like a 6-card hand with no protect markers, and then I had like 5 grade 3s and 1 grade 2. So it was very, very bad, and my opponent ended up rushing me that game on top of that, so I couldn't guard any of his attacks, and I literally just lost, I believe, before I even got to grade 3, or right when I got to grade 3, one of those. So round 2, we were actually talking about how one of our friends, Andrew, got paired up against someone in round 1 who was feeling sick, so they just went home, but they still paid for the tournament and all that, so they were still in the tournament. But that opponent, like the one that was sick and left, got a game loss for round 1, and so he basically got a bye, and we were talking about like how funny it would be if I got the bye for second round, blah blah blah. So lo and behold, I ended up getting the bye for the second round, which was pretty cool, especially since in PPG they count their bye as a win. So that was really cool. And then round 3, I fought against Neonectar. So game 1 was, I pretty much had game 1 under control. I had PGs all when I needed to have the PGs. Everything was going in pretty much as planned, and then at one point he went to use Cecilia's skill, which I had 3 PGs in my hand, so I would have PG'd all 3 of his attacks that turn, and then I believe finished him the next turn if he didn't check anything like heal, crit, or something like that for defense. So I think that I would have finished him off, but when he used Cecilia's skill, he actually looked at top 5, like he looked at the top 5 cards of his deck, and he put the top 5 down on the board and looked at his hand to see what he was going to call, and somehow he ended up getting his hand and the top 5 mixed up, and instead of shuffling the top 5 back to his deck, he shuffled his entire hand back to his deck. So he just accepted. He was actually the first one to mention it to me, so it wasn't something that I called out or anything. I actually didn't even notice until he mentioned it. But I guess I would have noticed later, like after I asked cards in hand, I would have realized that his cards in hand went down drastically because he had like 10 cards in hand, and then after he did that, he had like 3 cards in hand, so he realized that he shuffled his hand back to his deck, and he was just like, I get a game loss for that. So we moved on to game 2. Game 2 was a complete blowout in his favor. He got all the early game rushing and all the good stuff that Neonectar does. I didn't have that much to keep up with it, so honestly I was in deep water by the time we got to grade 3, and by then it was just a blowout because I wasn't getting enough protects fast enough or PGs fast enough to kind of guard his attacks, and I was losing advantage. So I lost the second game, and then the third game was pretty even. Really close game, came down to the wire. We ended up going into time actually, and in time on the very last turn I finished him off. So it was a really well played game by my opponent. Round 4, I fought against a friend who's playing Gold Paladin. So I actually don't get to see this friend too often because they go to another card shop in Georgia that is like an hour and 15 minutes away or something like that from mine, so I actually don't get to see his group that often, so it was cool to be able to fight him in the tournament, also interact with his group, because they always like really hype me up. So it was really cool fighting him. It was probably the funnest match that I had of the entire day, like the most non-serious, like laughing, joking match. So he played Gold Paladin, like I said, he played the updated version. I kind of had no problem with it, but only because I was really sacking him really hard. Like I was checking heals like every turn. I checked draw triggers like on defensive when I needed them, but I guess to be fair, like some of those times it wasn't sack just because I was like looking at the top card of my deck and then being like, oh, this is a heal or a draw trigger, okay, I'm gonna put it back on the top of my deck so that next turn, you know, I can just take the damage and you know, take the damage and check that whatever, draw, heal, whatever. So for example, like I run Core Magus, the grade 1 that allows you to check top 2, so you can actually like ride Core Magus, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and then add a card, and then let's say that the other card was a draw trigger, you can literally just put it right back on top of your deck, and so you basically ensure that when your opponent attacks into you, because they will if they want a dry check, which is very rare that a player doesn't want to take their dry check, so when they attack into you, you will inevitably get a draw trigger, but even if they don't attack into you and they just pass turn or something like that, you're drawing a PG, so very, very useful. Couldn't have said more about that. We ended up going to game 3 because there was one game where he really forced me onto the wire, and I was really concerned about playing against Excel, like I said, going into this tournament, because like Excel, in my opinion, just craps all over Protect, and a lot of times there's nothing that the Protect player can do about it. There just wasn't a lot of Excel players in the tournament in general, so that's why I believe that a Protect deck won the entire tournament, because it definitely would have been a different story had there been a lot of Excel decks. But then moving on to round 5, I actually fought against someone that goes to my locals. She ended up getting second place, and we basically just strolled around during round 5 until we came to a draw. So we drew table 1, we were table 2 at the time, so we both drew like just to not play and get into top 8. And so when we got into top 8, we took pictures before we did top 8. Everyone's laughing, having a good time, and then we started top 8, which was kind of weird because we started top 8 without doing a deck check, which apparently they did in Atlantic City, but they didn't do for us, so maybe they were running low on time or something like that, but we didn't do a deck check. The matches end up being I don't know what the other matchups were actually, but I know that I ended up playing against Hunter Regal, who I believe ended up getting 3rd place, if I'm not mistaken, 3rd or 4th place, because he was in top 4. And he was actually another person from the group that I played against when I played against the Gold Paladin player that I mentioned in the previous round. So he was really, really cool. Obviously very, very nervous because he was new to the game and his group had like hyped me up beyond, you know, reason. But, you know, no one's unbeatable, and he was playing Narukami, so he honestly did a really, really good job. Game 1, I lost to him. Game 2, I ended up beating him because I chose to go first, and then I got a lot of the advantage, like everything came to me perfectly. And then game 3 was just a complete blowout. Like during game 1 and 3, I G-assisted for a grade 1, so that wasn't pleasant at all, especially when you G-assist and you're forced against an Excel clan. It's pretty much like you're really deep in the water at that point, and you have to pull yourself out in a really major way, and your opponent also has to get unlucky. So game 3 was just a complete blowout on his side. Like I G-assisted, and then once I did, like he saw my hand too, so there's not much that I could do with like, I couldn't like flex and kind of pretend like I had guard when I didn't or stuff like that, because he knew exactly what I would have, what I would be able to block, what I wouldn't be able to block. So rushing me turned out to be the good play. He rushed me and I just lost the game. shook his hand. He played well, he played accordingly, so very, very awesome player for 2 months into the game. And Crow from our locals, Antonio, ended up winning the entire thing. I did deck profiles of him, Hunter, as I just mentioned, the Narukami player, Brian McDaniel, who did Royal Paladin, who played Royal Paladin in top 8 as well, and then I also got and Mr. Anthony Julian, the one that made top 8 as well, that I was talking about, the first OTT player from my round 1. So that was my rounds. Pleasant experience all around. Something that I really liked as well is the head judge. Maybe he didn't or did know who I was, I don't know, but I kind of like took a deep sigh after I lost top 8 as I was packing up my stuff, and because I just realized that I just lost in like an unoptimal way for me, because I didn't want to G-assist and then lose like that. So I lost like that, and then the head judge was actually watching another game and turned over to me and was like, "Don't worry, Josh, you did a great job." So I'm not sure if he just said Josh because he knew that I was sitting there as the player. He didn't know me, he just knew my name, because I definitely didn't know him. But I thought it was really cool that he said that, because it kind of like, even though I wasn't going to super beat myself up over it, because I do realize at the end of the day that it is standard, and it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors format between Force, Protect, and Excel, with sometimes, you know, the loser coming out on top of the matchup. So even though I wasn't going to beat myself up over it too much, it was really cool for the head judge to take time and tell me that. A little self-confidence booster. So yeah, Crow ended up winning. Rashonda, the second place, ended up getting second with OTT Magus, like a mixed variant. Third, top 4 ended up being another Royal player, I think, and who I didn't get their deck profile, and then Hunter, and then the rest of the top 8 was me, Anthony, Brian, and Matthew, or Matthew was in top 4 actually. So it was actually top 4 was actually Hunter, 1 Narukami, 2 OTTs, and 1 Angel Feather, which is what Crow was playing. So the other Royal player actually lost in top 8 as well. So yeah, not much to say past that point. And now I'm going to cut to a different portion of the video where I give you guys my deck profile. So look forward to that. Boom. Alright guys, welcome to our deck profile part of the video. I'm going to be doing a deck profile of my Oracle Think Tank deck that I played in the PPG, Atlanta PPG Regionals. So let's get right into it. So I played 1 Lozenge Magus as my starter. Really good card. Obviously just lets you draw a card, but used in combination with Core Magus can present you with a couple of plays to do on turn 1, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it just draws you a card like any other starter in Standard. Then for Flare, I ran 4 of my Imperial Daughter Protect markers. Obviously you need Protect markers if you are going to play a Protect deck. You need the markers, so I just wanted to play these to show them off from Cali when I went there for Chara Expo, which, by the way, if you guys are waiting somehow for the vlog of that, I've been really behind on videos, but I'm going to upload that very soon and put it up for you guys in case you guys want to see it for memory's sake or something like that. Next up for grade 3s, I ran 4 Imperial Daughter. Imperial Daughter is kind of like the main grade 3 that you want to ride in the deck. It is our main pressure grade 3. However, you only want to ride her after you've already been on grade 3, just because she gets 15k in a crit from her skill when she does ride on top of a grade 3. So basically the play is to usually try to go for this first, CEO Amaterasu. So you try to go for that first, and then Imperial Daughter every turn after that if you can. But Imperial Daughter has 2 abilities. The first one is kind of us one. When it's placed on Vanguard Circle, you get to look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You can put 1 to your hand you have to put one into your hand, and then you put the other one either in one of two places, in the soul or back on the top of your deck. So if it's in your if it's a trigger, you definitely want to put it back on top, so you stack your trigger, you know what you're going to check, at least for the first check of the two during your turn. So it gives you a lot of pressure to your opponent. Even when you put a non-trigger unit back on top, it gives a lot of pressure to your opponent, which is what I usually do, because they don't know if it's going to be a trigger or not. The secondary ability is you can Soul Blast 1 during the main phase and give one of your units 6k. Really helps change your columns, especially against force, and if you move grade 1s up to the front row, who naturally would not be able to hit. So running 4 Chara Expo, CEO Amaterasu. Not much to say about it as well. Kind of just something that I wanted to show off, but this card is very, very good as a first ride, and even later in the game, because it just makes really big columns, really solid column by itself. So the difference between it and Imperial Daughter is basically that it doesn't get 15k in a crit, but it does make up for that with power gain from its second ability, which is basically anytime that you reveal a card from the top of your deck, or whenever you look at cards from the top of from your deck for any reason, then this unit gets plus 5,000 power. So that's usually your effects, like itself. So it triggers off of itself. So its first ability is Counterblast 1 and draw a card, and then you can look at the top card of your deck and put it on the top or bottom. So you get 5k just for doing that skill. And then if you play other cards like Core Magus, Rectangle Magus, other cards that check top and put the top or bottom, then you will be able to gain power from those as well. Next up, finishing out the grade 3 lineup, I ran 2 Victorious Deer. Victorious Deer is basically in the name, helps you gain victory it's like one of the win conditions of the deck. So Deer skill is when it is on the Vanguard or Rearguard circle during your main phase, you can Soul Blast 2 grade 3s and you discard a card, and then you look at top 7 cards of your deck, reveal up to 2 critical triggers, and you put them on your top of your deck, and the rest of the other cards get shuffled and put to the bottom. So allows you to guaranteed stack triggers on top of your deck. It also gives plus 10k to your field, so it makes it really hard for your opponent to guard that on top of what's going on already. Moving on to our grade 2s, we played 4 Promised Daughter. So Promised Daughter obviously just has always been a staple of OTT standard. Has an ability that allows it to not be retired by anything, so it can't be retired by any effects. Kagero, Shadow Paladin, Royal Paladin, Blaster Blade, you name it, like they have to attack into it if they want to get rid of it, which is cool because its first ability is when it attacks a Vanguard. If we have 4 or more cards in our hand, it gets plus 6k, so becomes a 15k by itself, boosted by an 8k, that's easily 23, so that hits a good number on Force, Excel, and Protect, and obviously it would be something that if it's pounding them into the late game, they want to get rid of that. So they will probably just attack into it. Then we have 4 Rectangle Magus as part of our grade 2 lineup. This is one of the newer cards that I was talking about. So it came out in the trial deck. I'm pretty sure this card has just been splashed into every OTD variant because it's that good. But it has 2 rearguard abilities. The first one is when it's placed on the field, you can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1. Then look at the top 2 cards from your deck and put them on the top, and then you draw a card. So basically this is really cool if you have 1 normal unit and 1 trigger unit as the top 2 cards of your deck, which comes up in a scenario a lot more times than you would think. Pretty much like every time I play this card, there's like some kind of trigger in the top 2 cards and some other normal unit. So you can actually just put them back in a way so that the normal unit is on top. So you grab that with the draw 1 from a rectangle, and then you have also just set yourself up for checking a trigger the next time that you go to attack with your Vanguard. So its secondary ability is whenever your drive check checks a trigger, it gains 5,000 power. So the trigger units are basically plus 15k whenever you give them to Rectangle, because Rectangle will get 5 from itself and 10k from the trigger. Running our last grade 2, we have Battle Sister Tort. So This card is a really good pressure card. I know a lot of people, as I mentioned, or as we mentioned in Anthony Julian's deck profile, we were kind of talking about how good this card is in relativity to the 12K vanilla that OTT got, and I actually still prefer this card just because it creates a lot of opportunities for you just to like outright win the game against your opponent, especially because I'm playing a beat variant. So having this on the field with Wheel Crane or something like that to give it like more and more power, and then your opponent has to block in inherently if they're at 4 damage, and also you can just feel free to give your crit to the other side. So let's say that you have a Rectangle Magus on one side and a Torch on the other side. If your opponents have 4 damage and you know that you're going to check at least a crit off the top of your deck by stacking, you can attack with your Vanguard. This will already be able to swing at your opponent with a crit, assuming that you have 10 or more cards in your hand if you don't go for a different play. But this is assuming that you have 10 or more cards in your hand. So, and then you stack the trigger onto this, and then this actually becomes 24K by itself with a crit. So very good. Makes your opponent have to guard, and it wastes a lot of resources out of their hand. Moving on to our grade 1s. We have 4 Circle Magus. So Circle Magus is really good. It is your preferred ride in the deck for grade 1. I know I spoke a lot about Core Magus, and it's really cool ride shenanigans, but it's basically just a backup ride to Circle Magus because we do want to get ahead of our opponent by drawing a card, and it also allows you to, when you check a grade 2 or a grade 3, put it to the bottom and draw a card, which synergizes great with this card, Wheel Crane, but we'll go over that in a bit. And it also helps you dig for pieces that you need. We have 4 Core Magus here. So Core Magus, when you play it on the Vanguard or Vanguard Circle, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and then you can choose which order to put them back in. So basically that's really good when you're preparing to plus, or you're just preparing to check triggers or whatever. Like let's say that you didn't know the top 2 cards of your deck, and you look at the top 2 cards of your deck and they're both triggers, like criticals or something like that. If you attack your opponent with your Vanguard and then they 2 to pass you, you can now undoubtedly say all Vanguard, knowing that you're going to check 2 triggers. So that's why checking the top 2 with that card is so powerful. And then lastly, we ran 4 Wheel Crane. So this was kind of unorthodox to a lot of people. A lot of people were like, "What? You're running Wheel Crane?" Like a lot of people that I played actually thought that I only ran like 1 or 2, but I actually like this card at 4 just because you can do it in the battle phase. So it has very good synergy with Circle Magus. So a lot of times I'll have Circle Magus on the board, and basically what it does is, in combination with this, it turns your check of a grade 2 or grade 3 into a trigger, because you will get 10,000 power to 2 units. Because basically the way that it works is you have this on the field, and you have Wheel Crane on the field, and basically whenever you check a grade 2 or 3, you use Circle Magus skill to put this card, or to put the card check to the bottom and draw a new card, and then you use Wheel Crane skill immediately to shove it to the soul and give plus 10k to 2 front row units. So that's very cool to mention, just because of the ability making all your cards beat sticks in combinations with Tort and even Promise Daughter and Rectangle Magus. It can really be a force to be reckoned with, especially if you have done like Victorious Deer in the same turn. Like your columns are really big and really dangerous to your opponent, so it's gonna be really hard for them to bypass stuff. And it also really won me some games when I was playing with Gold Paladin and when I was playing with Neo Nectar as well. But the ability of Wheel Crane, sorry if I didn't go over it already, is when you draw a card, you can put this card into your soul, and then 2 of your front row rear guards, or 2 of your rear guards, 2 of your rear guards in your front row get plus 10,000 power. Unfortunately, it doesn't say units, because that would be busted, because you'd be able to turn your grade 2 and grade 3 checks into triggers for your Vanguard, so that would be really cool, but I guess really broken as well. And then for our grade 0s, I guess I should also mention last thing about wheel crane is that wheel crane, since it goes to the soul, it does provide good fodder for rectangle Megasis skill and also promise daughter skill. So our triggers are typical 8 crit, 4 sentinel triggers, so 4 draw trigger, and 4 heal. So basically this is our trigger lineup. Pretty standard for standard, as I like to say. Not really a different lineup that you want to run or want to even consider running in OTG, just because the factor of deck out is already there for you as an OTG player. You don't want to increase it by running more draw triggers, which is really your only other option, because they haven't released more criticals, because I'm sure that they don't want people to play 12 crit decks, and that's why they haven't done that yet. But yeah, that has been the deck profile. So I'm gonna switch back over to the other part of the video now. Peace, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, but that has been the end of the video. I really enjoyed my PPG Pro Tour. I hope you guys enjoyed the video of me talking about it. Let me know your comments down below of what you thought of the event, or if it's an event coming to your city, if you think it can rival ARG or beat ARG. I definitely think they're well on their way with, you know, the 2 out of 3s. They're well-paced timing, like they seem like they have cool staff. So that's usually my problem with ARGs is staffing. So yeah, just all kind of things that collectively matter when you're having an event that ends up being cool. So yeah, let me know what you thought down below. If you did like the video, be sure to leave a thumbs up on the video. Helps a lot more than you guys think. Check out my sponsor Dabbers down below in the comment section down below. They make a lot of things possible for this channel now, so really appreciate them. And yeah, if you guys are into anime or gaming, check out my second channel down below, Let's Plays Animes, on YouTube as well, and everything else is down in the description below if you're interested, so check that out. And with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.